Welcome to my neighborhood. That's my pumpkin patch back there. I thought I'd talk to you from outside on this windy, beautiful day and talk to you about anatomical language. So first and foremost, we always describe any body part, no matter how it's found, in what's called the anatomical position. That's feet flat on the floor, palms facing forward, eyes facing forward. This is the anatomical position. You always describe a body part as if it's on a patient and they're in the anatomical position, no matter how you find them. All right, so the on page, the very beginning of the lab, it's got regions of the body. So let's go over some of these regions of the body, shall we? Cephalic refers to the head region, and there are some sub-regions. The frontal, forehead. Optic, orbital is the eye socket. Nasal refers to nose. Buccal, your cheeks. Buccal, cheeks. Go Cowboys. Oral is mouth. Mental is chin. I don't know where that word comes from. That's always fascinated me. Cervical refers to neck. Then we have sternal, near the sternum, right in the middle. Axillary, armpit, mammary, chest region. This whole area up here is the thoracic area, and down here is the abdominal area. The pelvic region, and that's as far as I'm going there. And then the inguinal is the groin. Pubic region, I hope you know where that is. The patellar region. The kneecap is the patellar region. Crural, C-R-U-R-L, or A-L, shin. You know, where you bang it on something and it hurts like heck. Then we got anything foot is pedal. You know, like you would pedal a bicycle. And there's even a name for the big toe. I'm not going to show you my big toe, but it's called the hallux. And the muscles that move the big toe are called the hallux, and then their movement that it does. In the upper limb, the acromial is the shoulder region. Brachial is upper arm. This thing's flapping in the wind. I can hardly see it. But this is fun. This is different, isn't it? It is for me. Antebrachial is the forearm. And then we have the carpal region is the wrist. What I didn't mention is the ankle region is tarsal. Carpal, tarsal. And the bones in the wrist and the ankle get named carpals and tarsals. And one of the hacks I use to remember that is that it's alphabetical. If you start from the top of the head and work your way down, you get to C, carpal, before you get to T, tarsal. Then we got the manus, the hand. We got the palmar region in the palm of the hand. And then the thumb. The thumb has its own name, pollex. And here I'll get on a secret code here. You know, I know we're not supposed to be judgmental, but people can't help it sometimes. And so maybe you want to express your approval or disapproval of something, but it's not really the right time and place to say, oh, look at that guy. Or, oh my gosh, look at that. He went to work in his workout clothes today and he's standing out in his yard. Well, you can just go pollex up. Or if you don't like it, pollex down. So, having an anatomy lab, double pollux up. Having it online, double pollux down. All righty. What else we got here? Turning around the, what do we have? Otic is ear. And this region, the back of the head, is the occipital region. Now, interestingly enough, the name of the bone and the name of the muscle in between the skin and the bone, also called occipital, just like frontal. So you take my hat off. Look, I got hair. It's gray, but I got it. Frontal bone, the muscle's name is the frontalis. Then we get the shoulder blade area is scapular, vertebral, along the vertebral column, lumbar, down in the small of the back, and sacral, right about here. And then we get the gluteal region. I'm not going to, perineal is, you'll have to look at the diagram. I'm not showing you where the perineal is. Around the back of the knee. Back here, can you see that? The back of the knee is the popliteal region. So that's the rear of the body. There's a pulse point that you can take called the popliteal pulse point, which is where you can palpate the popliteal artery. And there's also a muscle in there called the popliteus. Then we move down the bottom of the foot. Look how I can maintain my balance. Pollux up. Bottom of the foot is the plantar region. Maybe you've heard of plantar fasciitis. There's a muscle in the bottom of the foot called the flexor digitorum brevis. That's on your muscle list. I'll show you where that is later. Anyway, as the muscle moves back and forth, it goes into a wrapping. There's a sheath of connective tissue around it as the muscle moves. And if it gets irritated, it's a typical overuse injury. If it gets irritated and inflamed, then it becomes plantar region. Fascia, that's the name for the connective tissue sheath. Itis, inflammation of. And like I said, it's a common overuse injury. People get it from when they take up running as a hobby. That's real common. People who have careers where they have to stay on their feet a lot, right? Like professors outside. No, most of the time I just sit at my computer. But what about nurses and other healthcare providers? They're up on their feet all day long. You have to rest, plantar fasciitis, and you really need the good news. So before you get one of these jobs, spend the money and buy good shoes. It's going to cost you about $100, but I promise you, you do not want to experience plantar fasciitis. The diagram I was talking about is this one. You can't really see that, can you? It's a little dark, but that's in your lab manual. All right, let's put the lab manual down and get to some those directional terms I told you about. The very first one is superior and inferior. Superior is toward the head. The most superior part of the body is this one, right up here at the top of the head. Inferior is away from the head. Now they're relative terms, because let's say this E, is it superior or inferior? Well, like the airport in my example I was talking about the other day, it depends on compared to what. Compared to my nose, the E is inferior. Compared to the word on, it's superior. So the E is closer to my head than on. So the E is superior to on, making on inferior to E. But look at this. The word, it looks like it's backwards. It looks like it says no. The word, this word here is superior to my blue workout shorts. So toward the head, superior, away from the head, inferior. Then we get anterior and posterior. Let me suck that gut in here. Anterior is toward the front. Posterior toward the back. Now, there's also a related term called ventral and dorsal. So ventral and anterior are somewhat interchangeable. Anterior is far more common. Posterior is more common. Dorsal is less common. Where you'll run into ventral and dorsal is when we talked about the central nervous system. Why are they there? Well, the explanation is that we need the same directional terms when we talk about four-legged creatures. Like my dog friends over there, they're looking at me like I'm crazy. Or my neighbor over there sitting on a deck looking at me. She sent me a text earlier while I was setting this up. She said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm working, man. I'm working. That's what I'm doing." And I'm learning them. I'm learning them good today. All right, so we got superior and inferior, toward the head, away from the head. We got the anterior, we got the posterior. Then we have medial and lateral. Medial is to the middle, right along the middle axis of the body, the longitudinal long axis of the body. Lateral is off to the side. Maybe, if we're lucky, what we'll see one of these days is Dak Prescott with his $30-some-odd million. You realize he's going to make $2 million a game at the very least? And he's going to take that ball, and he's going to go, "Hey!" He's going to take it like this, and then he's going to lateral it to Ezekiel Elliott. And Ezekiel Elliott will grab it, and he'll run, and it'll be touchdown, Cowboys. Double Pollocks up. Well, why do they call that a lateral in football? Because it's off to the side. Medial is toward the middle. Lateral is toward the sides. So, let's see. Compared to the two E's here, the K and the P are lateral. The E's are medial to the K and the P. The nose is medial compared to the ears. That makes the ears lateral relative to the nose. Then, now in the trunk of the body, the head, neck, and trunk, we use the directional terms superior and inferior, and we can use medial and lateral. And in the arms and legs, the appendages, we don't use superior and inferior. We use proximal and distal. Proximal, as in close, like I'm close to the camera now. Distal, as in distance. Now I'm way over here. And the reference point is the root of the appendage, the shoulder and the hip. So, what about the elbow? Is it proximal or distal? Compared to what? The elbow is farther away from the shoulder, so it's distal to the shoulder, but it's closer to the shoulder than the wrist. So it's proximal to the wrist. What about the wrist? Well, the wrist is distal relative to the elbow, but the wrist is closer to the root of the appendage, so it is the wrist, the carpal region, is proximal relative to the hand. The hand, see? Talk to the hand. Hello, I'll talk to the hand. What else we got here? Superior and deep. I can't really show you that without cutting myself open. I'm not going to do that. Superficial, I mean. Superficial and deep. Superficial is toward the surface of the body. You can see my skin here. My epidermis is showing. It's the most superficial part. Deep is down in here. You see, here is superficial. Somewhere about in there is a heart. And yes, I actually have one. So, then there are some sections, cross sections we could take of the body. A section right down through the middle of the body that separates it into right and left halves is called a sagittal section. And if it's right down the middle, it's called mid-sagittal. If there's a different longitudinal axis this way, the cut is made this way, so like if the models that open up and you can see inside, those are called, that's a frontal, or sometimes called a coronal section. That divides the body into front and back, or anterior and posterior halves. And then 90 degrees to the long axis, this way, is transverse. transverse section. Now these sections are all useful for taking different views of the body, whether you're talking about an autopsy or you're talking about a model that's open or some kind of imaging like X-ray or MRI or CT scan. So that's that presentation. We'll see if we can make it out in the yard, if I can come up with an excuse to come back out here another time. Meanwhile, it's going to go back inside and go over that organ system survey list.